Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I'm glad to see you. I see some of you already signing in and um, kind of acknowledging the live chat tonight. I apologize. My live chat is an hour later. I was seeing people in the office, and I don't know what it is about holiday time. It's like everybody is scattered and just disorganized and all over the place. And so my office has been like, I don't know, a tornado for the past week. So I appreciate you guys being supportive and just saying, hey, just go do what you need to do. So thank you so much for that. I'm always appreciative for your support. Let's jump into this, okay? But I just looked up and I saw that Instagram is having an issue again. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go to Instagram and I'm going to fix this before we jump in. I think this conversation is going to be really helpful for you guys, and I think you're going to be able to relate to this a lot more than maybe you thought. I think we have an experience with female psychopaths more than we think we do. You know, um, and I think that's just because research is so scarce and not a lot of people understand the difference between a male and a female psychopath. So we're going to talk about that tonight as well because it correlates with the topic of family alienation. And you're going to see why in just a minute. Family alienation, from my experiences with clients, oh geez, hold on guys, bear with me as I get this set up. Here we go. Family alienation, which I have seen in the office, is a really complex topic because it's not easy to identify if you are being alienated from family, or sometimes if you are alienating yourself through your behaviors, through your wanting to go no contact. And other times, I'm going to be honest with you, we don't have a lot of research and psychology and psychological articles and magazines and books that speaks to the impact of alienation. So a lot of people just say, that cousin stopped talking to me, that cousin stopped talking to me, that aunt over there told me she never wanted to talk to me again, that uncle over there, I don't know what his issue is, but we don't have a close relationship. And again, part of that is just simply because we don't have a lot to pull from. So you guys, if you've experienced or feel like you've experienced family alienation, you probably know what I'm talking about. There's not a lot of information around. You may do a Google search and you may find like one or two articles, but you're not going to find a lot, Let me add in here a comment for Instagram. Hello, friends. Come join us on my channel. Okay. We're good. All right, let's jump in, guys. Okay. So let me break this down before I get into dropping some new terms, dropping some ideas. Let me just say that this live chat is basically designed around two very important topics. One is family alienation and all of the different kinds of alienation. So we're going to talk about family marginalization. We're going to talk about parental alienation. And I also want to add in here family and child estrangement. So I'm going to tease those things apart for you. But the other piece of this important puzzle is the female psychopath. And here's why. Number one, I have a video coming up for you guys on female psychopaths. I had to kind of postpone that this week, but you're going to get it next week. Female psychopaths can be the most difficult within a family dynamic. Yes, there are male psychopaths and they are very difficult as well, but female psychopaths can truly destabilize a family. Why? Because mom is always the center of everything, right? Mom is the center of everything. Dad can go have an affair. Dad can stay at work every day, all day, 24/7 because he's a workaholic. Dad can go over there and hang out with his buddies at the bar. But try that with a mother, and the family dynamic is destabilized. I'm not being gender discriminatory. I'm not minimizing the role of a dad. I want to put that out there as a disclaimer. But what I am saying is that our culture, and you guys in the chat box probably can agree with this, our culture says moms are everything. Even Mother's Day, okay, outsells Father's Day, okay? And what's interesting is even for Valentine's Day, and some of the research I was looking at was pretty interesting in this regard. Even Valentine's Day, a mother will get Valentine's Day cards, a box of chocolates, flowers, right? Does dad get that? Probably not, right? So in our society, we've kind of exaggerated the role of mom so much that when a mother is a psychopath, the entire family is destabilized, which can lead to family member marginalization. I'm going to bring that up in just a minute. I'm going to break it down. It can also lead to parent-child alienation if there's a female psychopath who's a mother. And it can also lead to child and family estrangement because the female is really the rock of the whole thing. Dad definitely serves a purpose, but mom is the rock. Mom is the one who can cry with you. Mom is the one who will hug you. Mom is the one who doesn't have a hard time accepting your behaviors or, you know, some of your needs and some of your fears, right? And of course, this is if you have a good mom. So the idea of mom is major. Unfortunately, in these kind of families where there's family alienation, mom is not an important figure. Why? Because the mother has what we call a personality pathology. A personality pathology. There's something going on at the core of who this woman is. Now, this is not just about psychopath mothers. Let me add in here. You could have a psychopath sister. You could have a psychopath aunt. You can have a psychopath grandma, great grandma, right? So, or stepmother. So we're including all females in this conversation, in addition to you just being an individual within a family where there's family alienation. What's going on there? So we're going to tease that apart. I also want to give you some information on typical patterns of a family where there's a psychopath female, where there's family alienation. I'm going to give you the research, and then I want to tell you how this impacts you. So that's going to be the end of the live chat. Let me say, family member marginalization is a term that describes a situation where you are marginalized. You are over here and everybody else is over here. Could there be ostracism a part of that? Yes. Mom can go yapping her mouth to your sister or your brother, and then your sister and your brother begins to turn on you and begins to marginalize you and put you in this box because of what mom has said. And sometimes even what mom hasn't said can actually have an impact on you. We call that seductive invitations. Seductive invitations. I'm secretly inviting you to think this way with me without me saying, I want you to go against your brother. I want you to go against your sister because she did A, B, and C to me, and I find it unacceptable. But a psychopath mom, a mother, can definitely be very good at perpetuating the family marginalization because of sometimes direct speaking about you that marginalizes you, and sometimes indirect, which is what we call seductive invitations. Passive aggressive, under the surface, subliminal, secret, privacy, whatever. I'm going to just keep that attitude up so that my other children will pick up, not verbally, that they will pick up that I want them to go against this person in the family. Let me also say too, with parent-child alienation, I'm going to define that in just a minute here. But with parent-child alienation, there is also seductive invitations. Here's what happens. So let's say, for example, you have been alienated from your mother. Your father raised you. Why? Because mom was in school trying to get her degree. Then she lost her home and became homeless. Then she got on drugs, and then she had a hard time getting off of drugs. She got depressed and anxious, and she was in therapy for a while. And now here you are as an adult, and all you have heard about your mother over the many years of being with your father is she's a bad mother. This is what she does to me. This is what she said to me in this text. Why don't you take a look at this text message? This is what your mother just sent me. Your mother just did this to us. Your mother just took me to court last week. She cares nothing about you. She just wants to get back at me because I moved on with my life. This is what your mother has done. This is what your mother hasn't done. If you hear that repeatedly, right, over the course of many years, by the time your mother starts to kind of come back and get better, she's reaching out for you. What's going to happen when there's been parental alienation? You're going to say, nope. I don't want anything to do with you, Mom. And here's why. Because everything that I've been poisoned with over the duration of my development is now skewing my perception of you. And so I no longer want anything to do with you. Not because of necessarily what I feel, more so because of what he feels. And that's my dad. And I respect my dad and I love my dad and I know he wouldn't hurt me. So no, Mom, I'm done. Parental alienation. There's a lot of child family estrangement because of parental alienation. Parental alienation really describes the malicious, how am I going to put this? Nature. I'll put it that way. The malicious nature of the parent-child dynamic. It's a triangle. Mom, dad, and the child. If you can envision a triangle, mom, dad, and the child. And so what a parent who engages in parental alienation does is sometimes they try to be better than the other parent. They try to engage that child in better experiences with them. They manipulate the child's feelings against the parent, the other parent. And sometimes they engage in triangulation, where the child, whether you're an adult child or a child or an adolescent, the child has really been placed in the middle of all interactions between mom and dad. And because of that, the child starts to feel very coerced, very excluded. There's a lot of differences and disapproval. And before you know it, you're sinking in your own depression. You're sinking in your own anger and resentment. You're sinking in your own fear, anxiety, and depression. Why? Because parental alienation has not just impacted the other parent, it's impacted you as well, right? So that's parental alienation. Now, child family estrangement is just as complex. It's really the process of distancing. Child family estrangement. It's distancing. Really, it's a process of distancing. And when I have to educate my clients to this, they're like, I never thought about it that way, you know? And I'm like, yeah, let's process this for a second. Child family estrangement. A child doesn't just become an adult and decide, I'm out of here. There has to have been a process over many years of pain, trauma, heartache, exclusion, indifference, minimization of your feelings, minimization of your opinions, a disrespect for your feelings, invalidation, right? And if you experience that over a duration of time, right, you get to 18 and you're like, I'm out. Right? So it's a family distancing process, family and child estrangement. It's a whole family process. And during that process, some adult kids get to the end of that and say, you know what? No matter what my mom has put me through, no matter what my aunt, my sister has put me through, or even my dad, I'm going to stick around because I love my family. Right? And then there's some kids that turn into adults. You guys probably can relate to this. And they say, you know what? I'm out of here. I can't deal with this. She's tormented me for all of my life. My dad didn't even help because he couldn't step in. He was weak to my mom. And my siblings are devils. So I'm out of here. And so the family distancing process sometimes gets kicked off that way. Let me say that family marginalization, parent-child alienation, and child family estrangement causes significant disruptions, significant disruptions, not only to your heart and mind, but also your feelings of a firm identity, your feelings of being loved and wanted. We're going to get into a little bit of this later, and even your sense of power and confidence and strength. All of these things, family marginalization, child and family estrangement, and parent-child alienation, all of these things causes significant disruptions in how you're supposed to be growing and processing over time. Let me give you just a brief overview of the psychopath female before I go to the chat box, okay? The psychopath female is a little bit different than the psychopath male, okay? And I am not jumping on males, and males can very much enjoy this topic as much as the females that are on the channel right now. But I've had 3 males in my history that I feel and saw were psychopaths. And I was shocked to find that when I would sit in front of a female psychopath, once I started kind of growing in my field, I was maybe 25, 26, maybe 30 at the time, and I started to really develop a sense of professional identity. I was able to be confident in my exchanges with my clients who were psychopaths. Thankfully, I no longer treat the male psychopaths. They have gone on to lead successful lives, which is very rare. But I did have, when I turned 30, and I had been doing therapy and clinical work for 10 years at the time, I remember getting a female psychopath, and here's what I've seen, and here's what the research says as well. There's often something very malicious about female psychopaths. You may be asking yourself why. Here's why. Because they not only have the ability to manipulate, right? Because they can look beautiful, they can be seductive, they can be confident, they can, really tweak their look. Men don't necessarily have that capability. Women can change the length of their hair, the texture of their hair, their makeup, their lipstick color, their nail polish, right? They can lose weight or gain weight. They can wear clothes that accentuates their shape or does not, right? They can do a lot of twisting of the mind just by how they dress, how they talk, how they speak. They can be very seductive, in addition to, really being manipulators of social networks. They know how to manipulate that person over there, manipulate that person over there, manipulate my husband, my mother, my cousin, my child. They know how to do it. Women tend to be the most difficult, according to research, and I've seen this too in my clinical practice. They tend to be the most difficult to identify as a psychopath because of all those different things I just gave you. Also, research suggests that there's something very interesting about the head movements of a female psychopath, that, they tend to have minimal head movements. Minimal head movements. What do you think that means, guys? Minimal head movements. Well, I had to do a little bit more research, because even though I'm a therapist and I'm good at this stuff, to a certain extent, I'm like, okay, that one threw me for a loop. What the heck does that mean? And so minimal head movements means this, that, they're not really attending. We call behaviors that makes you feel heard attending behaviors. When I'm in session with a client, I will nod. I will sometimes give a sign of approval. Sometimes I'll do this, sometimes I'll do that, sometimes I'll do this, sometimes I'll, smile at my kid really big and let him know that I really care about you. I want you to do well. Other times I'm nodding, and those are called attending behaviors. Female psychopaths do not have attending behaviors. They're not processing emotionally what is going on with them and what is going on with you at the moment they are communicating. So they kind of keep their head really, really still, and I've been around female psychopaths like that. Coworkers that are female psychopaths and should have never gotten into the field. Clients in the past who are female psychopaths and they're trying to be mom or wife. I've had sisters who were psychopaths and they were female. They all hold their head. Not all, maybe I should change that. For the majority of the time, They hold their head in a very firm position, and they really give you very minimal facial expressions. We call that flat affect. They're flat. And you may see a little bit of a grimace, but you may not see a smile. They may not blink. They may not move their nose or their mouth. They may not dart their eyes. It's like they are clearly on you. And that is a processing issue that we're looking at. And so a lot of female psychopaths deal with sensory processing issues, and they also deal with just processing emotional data. They don't have the ability to do that. They also tend to be, before I go to the chat box, they also tend to be verbal manipulators, and they use a lot of verbal violence against you. Verbal violence is, I'm going to come over there and beat you up. It could be profanity. It could be put downs. It could be just minimizing your need for validation, minimizing who you are as a person, right? So they may engage in verbal violence. They also tend to have a high rate of criminal behavior, and it can be white or blue criminal behavior. And I should say white or blue collar criminal behavior. White collar criminal behavior is, I'm going to take $900 billion from this company and I'm going to transfer it into my own bank account because I have all the passcodes and buttons and passwords to my boss of American Express. So I'm going to take all the money and put it into my bank account. White collar criminals. Blue collar criminals, they can also do that kind of stuff, but typically it's, I am going to steal something from behind the front desk, or I'm going to take these keys and go through all the doors in the building to see if maybe I can get somewhere and see what's going on behind that door I'm interested in. Sometimes it can also be petty theft. Sometimes it could be stealing cars, selling drugs, going to prison for a while because of prostitution, things like that. Okay. Lastly, before I go to the chat box, they also tend to have female psychopaths within a family dynamic where there's alienation. They tend to have instrumental violence. They tend to display that, I should say. And what that means is they engage in criminal behavior that has a goal. I'm going to rob this person of their purse, their wallet, their credit cards, everything, because I need to buy my kids Christmas gifts. I'm going to steal that Mercedes over there because I need to sell it so I can get my boyfriend out of jail. Okay. Or I'm going to become a DoorDash person so that I can go to the nice homes and see if there's any way I can break in because I need money. There's always a goal. So they engage in a lot of instrumental violence. Okay. So let me go to the chat box. Okay, guys, I need a sip of water. I'm going to go to the chat box, engage you, welcome you, all of the above. And then we're going to talk about typical patterns within family alienation and really being under the control of a female psychopath. That could be mom, that could be grandma, that could be a sibling, whatever the case, it's a bind. So we're going to talk about what that bind is. Let me get a sip of water. I wonder if I should does anybody know? I'm going to ask you this just to kind of give myself just a little bit of a mental breather. Does anybody know, are we allowed to show labels on YouTube? Like, this is Sam's Club? I hope not. My brother, last live chat I did, I was drinking water. He's like, next time you go on, take that wrapper off. Whoops, sorry. I don't know. Do we have to do that? I don't know. He's smart, okay? He's like a genius. So, okay. Michelle Lynn, hello and welcome. Yes, Merry Christmas to you. And thank you so much for that. And you're welcome. Always glad to see you. Ellie Wynn, yes, you're welcome. Thank you so much for saying that. I feel like it's an important topic as well. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I'm always glad to see you as well. Nancy R, Merry Christmas to you as well. Welcome. Sun and Sunflowers, hello. Yes, happy Friday. This was a really rough Friday for me. How are you guys feeling? This was a hard week, let me tell you. And I've had a migraine for 3 weeks. You ready for that, guys? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. So I'm happy it is Friday as well. Sun and Sunflowers. Sun and Sunflowers, Tammy Nicely, Fairy Girl, Kyra Knows, Cheyenne Moore, and Orlando. Hello and welcome. Glad to see all of you in tonight's live chat. Merry Christmas to you too. I'm going to put your comment up there, Kyra knows. And Mur, I probably messed that up. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. And Mur says, this will tell me a lot about myself if I'm crazy or not. Well, okay. I mean, I love honesty and I love people who are straight to the point. So maybe that is what this is going to be. I don't know. You may look at this and say, oh my God, my mom was one who engaged in parental alienation. My dad was a psychopath. My mother was a psychopath. So, you know, Gary Bennett, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. Gary Bennett says, my complex has 6 units. I'm the only disabled male. The other residents are elderly Lebanese women, only who are narcissistic psychopaths with family members who are gangsters. Interesting. I mean, I wonder if any of that's really that true, or is that kind of how you see them, Gary? I don't know. But when you are the only disabled male in a 6-unit complex, that can be pretty intimidating, right? Yeah, it can make you feel really vulnerable. Cheyenne says, personally, as a male, I have never envisioned a psychopath as a female. Am I saying your name right? Is this Cheyenne? Sheen? Please correct me. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. So they say, personally, as a male, I have never envisioned a female as a psychopath. I never envisioned a psychopath as a female, excuse me. Definitely biased, and I have no clue about the difference. Yeah, absolutely. Most people are biased when it comes to psychopaths, narcissists, and sociopaths. We think it's all men, and it's not. Women can be the most dangerous psychopaths and the most troublesome narcissists because of all the different characteristics that women can add to them, you know, externally and even just on the inside, right? You know, a woman sometimes can laugh and smile and, you know, flip their hair and, you know, sit confidently, and she's already got the power of the entire room, you know? So women have that peace in them. I think that's just been inborn straight from God. Most women have a natural ability to control a room sometimes. And so, you know, the psychopath as the female knows how to do that, and they know how to do it so well. And it's scary. It is scary. Let me also say, psychiatrists, psychologists, and, you know, lawyers and attorneys, and many of my colleagues who, you know, I consult with them, they consult with me. We talk about cases, we grow with each other, things like that. We meet up at conferences on psychopathy and narcissism. We all have the same realization, which is we have never been taught specifically about, number one, a psychopath, and number two, a female psychopath. So we are very much in the dark about this character, you know? So it takes a lot of research. Parika Ama, I hope I said that correct. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, is there always a live on Fridays on your channel? Yes, there is. Friday and Saturday. And then I've been posting videos throughout the week. So you want to make sure that you hit that subscribe button for those of you who are not subscribed, so that you know when I'm posting stuff. It'll pop up on your feed. Tammy Nicely, thank you so much for that. Yes. I'm so glad I can be of help. And thank you so much for all that positivity and love. I appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, Q Quote Award. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Michelle O125. I'm sorry, Mitchell. I totally bombed that. So Mitchell 0125. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Yes, I think I've seen you from Instagram. I have a really boring Instagram, let me tell you. Elizabeth, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Lauren Knight, hello and welcome. Yes. I hope this is going to be helpful. Thank you so much, Q Quote Award, for saying that. Uh-oh. Hold on, guys. Bear with me, okay? I'm trying to get to comments. Q Quote Award, thank you so much for that. Orlando says, I'm dealing with parental alienation and family alienation. Let me just say to you, Orlando, I thought of you as I was preparing for tonight's live chat. Orlando says, I'm dealing with parental alienation and family alienation, narc parents and toxic family, 4 years alienated. Yeah, sometimes, and I'm sorry to hear that. You mention that every live chat, and it's like, There's so many layers to that. So you can have parental alienation at the bottom of everything. You can have family alienation above parental alienation. And then you can just put family marginalization as the third layer. And the fourth layer could be child or family estrangement. That is literally how these topics are focused in the field of psychology. Why? Because sometimes they all happen at the same time. Can you imagine that? It's very, very tiring. Amira Deshawn, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Forgive me. Welcome. Good evening to you as well. Glad to see you. Juby Joe, yes, I'm live tonight. Glad to see you. Okay, hold on, guys. Bear with me. A lot of comments here. Bijal Patel, I hope I said that correctly. Welcome, glad to see you. Says, my brother told me he cannot have a relationship with me. I think his wife told him not to speak to me. Maybe so, maybe not. I don't know. I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like there's a lot in the background of what you said. Let's just hope that if his wife told him not to talk to you, that he will have conviction of heart. Right? Because somebody can tell me what I need to do. Somebody can tell me what I should do, but nobody can tell me what my heart is telling me is right and wrong. So he may be convicted in his heart and his soul, and that may help you. You never know, right? Jeannie B, hello. Glad to see you. Says, psychopath is such a strong word. It is. And that's for a reason, because there are psychopaths, so we need to call it what it is. MS, hello, glad to see you. Yes, she says, MS, because I don't know if it's a female or a male, says, my mother to a T. Yeah. Jamila Jabril, hello. Yes, it is cold outside and it's snowing where I'm at. Welcome, glad to see you. All right, Kim Math. If I'm saying that wrong, please correct me. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Says, personality pathology is practically the entire family. My sister and I are empaths and are healing, but the rest of the family is toxic. I've been no contact with mommy dearest for 4 years. Wow. Yeah. Mommy Dearest, if you watch the movie, and I'm sorry you have to go through that. Thank God you have your sister, because some people go through that realization of not having a good family or a mom, and they're doing this all alone. But thankfully you have a sister, and that's wonderful. Let me just say that anytime I talk about family marginalization, female psychopaths, in my office, my clients can relate to your story, Kim, because what they say is, I have to go no contact from my psychopath mother because she's very much like mommy dearest, and she's cold and self-centered and psychotic, and she's destabilized, and she's experiencing what we call emotional lability. You guys may have heard me say this in the past. Emotional lability, meaning their emotions are like a roller coaster, and there's twists and turns with their emotions, and they're never really just balanced. We all have ups and downs with emotions, but female psychopaths have a lot of lability in their emotions. There's a lot of ups and downs and turns, and the list goes on. Mommy Dearest is a wonderful movie to watch. If you feel that you have a mother who's a psychopath, I think it gives you a lot of insight into that kind of character. GB Joe says, in retrospect, was protected by an absentee mom. Absolutely. Absolutely. An absentee mom is typically, in some of the cases that I've had, and in some of the clinical research that we've done on female psychopaths, sometimes if you have a female psychopath that's raising you, they are going to be an absentee parent. You're going to be a latchkey kid. They're going to want you to do everything on your own, and they may expect way too much of you. I should put it that way. Way too much of you. There are kids that I have that I am seeing now, in the past, many years ago, who have come into my office and said, Ms. Tamara, I don't feel like my mom hears me. I don't feel like my mom gets me. I don't feel like my dad understands me. And a lot of times I'll ask the kid over a series of sessions, well, tell me what's going on. And over time, I build what we therapists call a case conceptualization. Excuse me, a case conceptualization. I've been getting these dry patches, guys. Hold on 1 minute. And I don't know why. Maybe it's all the days I talk. Seriously, I talk about 9 to 10 hours in the office. And then I come to YouTube and I talk more. So, okay. So the kid will tell me, let me go back over that. The kid will tell me what's going on. And I will conclude over time, after I get information, that the absentee parent is typically the psychopath kind of parent. They may not be, they may not meet the full criteria of what we would consider a psychopath, but they have many of the characteristics I'm going to take you into in just a little bit that makes life difficult for the child. So, Juby Joe, absentee mom, you're a latchkey kid, or you've had to learn things on your own, or you've had to grow up really fast. Typically, not always, but typically, it's a mother that is not present because she's all about herself, you know? We will get to the rest of that in just a second here. Thank you so much, Tammy Nicely. Oh, you do. That's awesome. These, I didn't want to wear them. Okay. I don't like my glasses, period. No matter how stylish they are, they just aggravate me. And so my mom's like, Tamara, I've had a migraine for 3 weeks. Put them on. And I listen to my mom, so I got to do it. Jeremy Robinson, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. I'm going to go back to the content in just a second here. Jeremy Robinson says, in other words, they try to upstage the other parent. That's a fantastic way to put it. Yes. Yeah. They try to upstage the other parent. I love that. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. I very much agree. Jeanette, you're my last one before I go back to the content. Hello and welcome. I'm always glad to see you in a live chat. Okay, let's go to typical patterns. Okay, what's typical patterns, of a family where there's family alienation, where there's a possible psychopathic female that's also a part of the family? What is a typical pattern in a family like this? Well, number one, the female who is a psychopath within this dynamic, they often cease contact. They cease contact a little bit at a time. I'll put it that way, a little at a time. That psychopath just struggles to kind of be engaged with the family. As GB Joe says, an absentee mom. Well, a female psychopath, whether that's a mom or not, it could be a sister, it could be an aunt, could be a grandparent. They tend to be very scarce. They tend to be very removed from your life. Why? Because everything a female psychopath does is for their own benefit. A male psychopath as well. But a psychopath typically does not have you at the center of their mind or in the center of their world. You're not the core of their existence. You're part of it, but you need to go over there because the psychopath wants what they want. And so in a family dynamic where there's family alienation, let's say mom is the psychopath or your sister also has developed some psychopath traits over time, you're likely going to feel this detachment between you and that psychopath mother or that psychopath sibling, and you're going to feel that family alienation over time. So that's what we mean when we say ceasing contact. The family dynamic is just so unhealthy that dad may cease contact with you. Mom, who may be a psychopath, may not want to talk to you ever again. Your sister may not want to talk to you ever again. A grandparent, an aunt. There's often a detachment. The other thing in these kind of dynamics is a minimization of disclosures. A minimization of disclosures. Really what that means is this. It's really a legal term, disclosures. Disclosures could be, I'm disclosing my mental health challenges to you. I'm disclosing my sexual abuse history to you. I am disclosing that I was diagnosed with PTSD because my mom and my dad beat me so much growing up as a child that I can still hear the slaps and the belt. Okay. Another disclosure could be legal or financial. I'm getting a divorce and here's why. I've taken you off my will and my estate because A, B, and C. Those are all very sensitive disclosures. Research in psychology on female sociopaths and psychopaths suggests that these kind of individuals engage in minimization of disclosures. I don't really need to know. Don't worry about telling me. I don't really care. Oh, okay, whatever. They have a very nonchalant disposition when it comes to a very serious disclosure. The last thing you want your mom to do, or the last thing you want your father to do in a very toxic family dynamic, is downplay your disclosure that you have been sexually violated as a child. That's the last thing you want dad or mom or your siblings to minimize, but it does happen in these kind of dynamics. There may also be, and primarily with a female psychopath, there may also be evil underlying, motivations. I'll put it that way. I couldn't think of the word I was trying to use earlier, but there may be evil underlying motivations, if I can speak. And what I mean by evil underlying motivations is everything that happens at the hands of that female psychopath, everything that happens in the core of that family alienation is for the benefit of that dominating person. And if you have a psychopath mother, sister, grandparent, they only care about themselves. So anything that they do, there's an underlying motivation somewhere. They may also lie to you, steal from you, deceive you. They may also manipulate and triangulate. They may also invalidate you. They may cast you aside as being unimportant in the family. And they may spread all of your news and your information to other people in the family and even outside of the family. And all of those things together can be defined as an evil underlying motivation. There's something at the core that says they are doing this for this purpose, instrumental violence. There is a reason for such behavior. Excuse me. Okay, guys. The other one is there's also intentionality with behaviors. There's intentionality with behaviors. Everything that a female psychopath does, even a male, but for the purposes of this live chat, for a female psychopath, there's always an ultimate goal. It's instrumental, There's intentionality. They do A, B, and C for this specific reason. They very rarely make mistakes. They often have a reason. Let me just decipher for you, because you probably want to know this. Sociopath and psychopath, what's the difference between the two? So a lot of people use the term interchangeably, and they believe that a sociopath is less complicated than a psychopath. And here's what the truth is, that a psychopath and a psychopath and a sociopath are the same thing. A psychopath and a sociopath are the same thing, but here's what makes it different. A sociopath is more clumsy. They're more immature. They don't quite know how to execute moves correctly without getting caught. They don't think through their behaviors enough, and they tend to be extraordinarily impulsive. So what do you do with somebody like this, right? It's really difficult, especially when they're in your family. A psychopath, however, tends to be very goal-oriented, calculating, wise in everything that they do, even though it's foolish. They tend to have a specific way that they go about things. A lot of psychopaths tend to be attractive, and so they use that against you. That's another thing. They are very criminal, and they are also very good at what they do. So they're way more experienced than the sociopath. So that's basically the clinical difference between the two. Now, in terms of diagnosing a person as a psychopath or a sociopath, we most certainly have to use the label antisocial personality disorder. I figured I would break that down to you. Okay, seductive invitations. Remember I mentioned that earlier? Well, in a family where there's family alienation or parental alienation or family marginalization, where you're just kind of pushed over there, there's often a lot of seductive invitations. And the term doesn't mean necessarily seduce in a sexual way. That's not what we mean. what we mean. We're talking seductive in terms of I can take your brain and I can move it this way and move it that way, and I can tweak it that way. I can also affect your emotions so that you do A, B, and C for me. And so if a psychopath mother is influencing her child to go against the other parent, right? Or go against their sister, their brother, grandparents, whatever, there is a seductive nature to that because the parent already has power and control over you because they've brought you into this world. Even though we all like to think that we have free will, which we do to a certain extent, a parent brings you into this world with this inborn control over you. And so they know your buttons. They often know how you think. They often know how you feel before maybe you even know. And so they use that against you. So it's seductive because they're so methodical in how they try to shape and bend and distort your thinking and your mind. So seductive invitations can happen with family alienation. I'm going to talk to Aunt Susu over there and try to get her to go against my son because me and Aunt Susu have to continue to be close. And I need her to pay my mortgage every other month because I'm not making enough money. So Aunt Susu has to be my go-to girl, and I'm going to try to turn her against my son. Can you imagine that, guys? Yeah, it's evil. So it's seductive. There's always this seductive nature to what they're doing. And they want outsiders to take their side. So what do? They seduce indirectly. Nonverbal communication, eye contact, exhaling or inhaling, tapping their foot, sending emails or text messages, buttering them up, manipulating their emotions, their thoughts, right? All of this is seductive behavior. Okay. How am I going to say this? Non-collaborative behavior. Hold on, guys. Excuse me. I've never had to drink so much water in one live chat. So I apologize for that. But non-collaborative behavior. This happens when a family member or a parent to a child who they're alienating, when they are not being collaborative at all. I'm not going to help you make amends with your dad. I'm not going to help you make amends with your brother. I'm not going to go along with this Christmas party. I don't want to help you do anything. You know, I'm not going to help you call grandma and apologize for what you've done or what she's done to you. I'm not going to help in this situation. I'm just going to be way over here just observing everything. And so a lot of female psychopaths, primarily within a toxic family dynamic, they stand to the side and you're left often alone trying to figure out, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I start this conversation? How do I share this feeling? How do I navigate this really difficult situation? How do I see myself? How do I see you? Right? They leave you on the side of the road trying to figure this out because a female psychopath or just an individual in a very toxic family dynamic, there's lack of collaboration on just about everything. There's a lot of incohesion. That's the word I was trying to find earlier. There's a lot of incohesion. There's also a lot of destructiveness as well with these kind of parents, with these kind of, mothers. They're just destructive emotionally. Sometimes they're physically destructive. I once had a psychopath mom many years ago, maybe 6 or 7 now, who would come to therapy and I would do therapy between she and her son. Her son was 15. What I learned over time is that she would have fits of rage in the home and she would just start knocking everything down and, pushing everything off the cabinets and tearing her clothes. And she brought various pieces of clothing she wanted me to see. She tore up every piece in a fit of rage, And, she tore up books that they had in the home and she was just so very destructive. And if she wasn't tearing up things in her home, she was definitely getting into a car accident where she's been in a car accident more than 10 times. And now she's lost her license and her insurance for good. She can no longer go to any one of those places for support. No license and no insurance. It's over. you know? But she was the kind of mom that was very, very destructive. And so if you have a psychopath female in your life, you likely know what I'm talking about. They tend to be very, very destructive. Men can be destructive as well, but in a very different way. Let me give you some research before I go back to the chat box and then give you guys the last part of this chat tonight. Let me say that research suggests that adolescents who have a strong relationship with a psychopathic mother can, and sometimes a father too, can develop over time feelings that they are really being loved and cared for until they aren't. And a lot of adolescents grow into adults, identify that their mother was a psychopath or their father, and then they end up going to therapy and they get a chance to talk about what's going on. And that's how we know that most adolescents with parents who are psychopaths, they tend to struggle a lot. And they struggle a lot. One of my clients did many years ago as well. They struggle a lot with just feeling balanced, having a self-identity, having self-regulation, having emotion regulation, being able to calm themselves, regulate their feelings, their thoughts, you know? And so, of course, that's the research in that particular area. Let me also say that family cohesion, according to another study, I've posted everything in the description box for you. According to another study done on female psychopaths and family cohesion, if a family is cohesive, they are close and together. There's no triangles, there's no manipulation, there's no marginalization. A child can grow into an adult child and have a lot of life satisfaction because they were not ousted, they were not harassed, they were not estranged, they were not bullied, they were not minimized and validated, right? So they have a higher level of life satisfaction. Distortions of boundaries can also happen when there's parental alienation. You've got one parent over here manipulating your mind about that parent over there. What do you think is going to happen over time? Your boundaries are going to shift. So you may be more pushing your dad or your mom back, whoever that alienated parent is. You may find yourself closing off and withdrawing. You may find yourself getting really upset and angry and resentful at that alienated parent. And this is all based on what that manipulative parent is putting in your head and in your heart about that other parent. And so some of the research on this, parental alienation, family alienation suggests that, there's distortions of boundaries over time. You just get lost in that relationship with that other person or that relationship with your family because you're alienated. The other parent is being alienated and you're being alienated, I should say, from the family. And that can create a lot of issues. One last thing before I go to the chat box, which is some research also suggests that female psychopaths, again, and I mentioned a little of this earlier, they tend to seek out friendship with their victims. Let me go back over that. Some research in psychology suggests on psychopaths, primarily those who are female, suggests that they tend to make friends with their victims. Can you imagine why? They tend to make friends with their victims. If you can befriend your victim, you can put fear in them, you can minimize them, you can invalidate them, and they may bounce back and still want to be your friend. You can do a lot of dirty work. As a matter of fact, the term parent-child alienation has sometimes been defined as a dirty game, and that's a legal term, a dirty game. Parent-child alienation is a dirty game. Well, so too is a female psychopath who befriends a victim, somebody that they are harassing and bullying. It's very scary, right, guys? Okay, let me go back to the chat box. And then I'm going to give you information on how this impacts you, and then we're going to wrap up. Kyra Knows says, absolutely diabolical and disturbing. Yes, it is. Let me say, it's evil, to say the least, right? Okay. Jen Green says, good evening, hello, and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Nancy R says, taking notes. That's good to hear. I love when you guys do that. because then I know you're really getting it. It's sinking in. Q Quit Award says, I left before 18. I was 14. Whoa. Went from one trauma to another type of trauma. Yeah, absolutely. You shouldn't have been bouncing around, between the ages of 18 and 14 and 18, So, yeah, it's terrible. Maybe something happened with the parent-child relationship. They're responsible. It's not your fault. They're responsible. Sometimes it's nobody's fault. Can you believe that? Sometimes it's nobody's fault. It's just the family dynamic is toxic. It's marginalizing. It is unhealthy, And so sometimes you just have to go. Juby Joe says, emancipated student my senior year. Yeah, I totally get that. Fairy Girl, I'm just going to put your comment up there. Mitchell 0125 says, my stepmom is so toxic that my father is functioning and supportive. Yeah. Stepmother justifies an active temper tantrum and behind the back manipulation, alienation by exaggerating what I'm at fault for. That happened 13 years ago. I'm surprised she didn't see it coming based on her behavior in that moment. She is ruining my life every moment I'm in her presence. My Lord. Excuse me, guys. Mitchell, I'm sorry to hear that. That's not okay. And I actually started to incorporate in this conversation a focus on evil step parents, but I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. We're going to do that at a later time. But I totally understand. I think step parents can be really difficult to deal with. They do have a boundary that they need to respect. I'm the kind of therapist that if there's a step parent involved, I am the kind of therapist that says, wait, you only have but so much room here to be a parent, and then you need to back up because now you're being too parental. Now you're trying to discipline. Just be the good parent, be the parent that child can run to when they need to, be that adult step parent that can sign a lease, sign a check, maybe help sign a mortgage. Don't do anything past those limits. So I'm really hard on step parents. So I'm sorry to hear that happened. It sounds like you feel that your dad has been manipulated for sure. Hopefully one day he wakes up, right? Yeah. Josh Wayne, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. And thank you so much for that super chat. I appreciate it. Josh Wayne says, if she gets an abortion and gloats about it on social media, is that psychopath or sociopath? And then if my kid, how do I forgive myself and heal? Let me just say, gloating on social media can be a product of ignorance. It can be a product of having a bad social group that prioritizes the wrong things. But then it can also just be that this is an individual who is very detached and insensitive. There's a lack of empathy, right? There is a lack of identification that was a fetus, that was a growing thing that you just got rid of, detached yourself from, whatever way you want to put that. And to get on social media and brag and gloat over that is a no-no. I'm not going to say that's a psychopath, but I will say there's definite insensitivity. There is definitely, there's definite insensitivity. I'm sorry, I got distracted. There's a definite callousness and coldness to that kind of behavior. And there's also definitely ignorance there. I don't know if it's a psychopath. I'm not sure. I can't say just but that little bit of information, but it's very insensitive and it says a lot about her. It does. Fairy Girl says, sorry guys, I'm going to silence my phone. It's so distracting me right now. Fairy Girl says, the Institute, okay, there we go. The Institute of Human Anatomy says females need the gene from both parents, whereas male only need it from one parent. Well, that's a pretty interesting thing. Yeah, I never understood what that actually meant. I'm not going to even go there, Fairy Girl, but I agree with that observation. I was thinking that before I came on tonight. Dio, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. I hope I said that correctly. MNL Odell, hello and welcome. Glad to see you tonight. Says, I don't think we've ever discussed estrangement from the parents' perspective before. That would be interesting to explore. Absolutely. I caught that, MN Odell. I'll definitely put that on the list for sure. I think a lot of people would like me to talk about it because they've been asking me to talk about it for centuries, it feels like. So I will definitely get there probably in the new year, because after Tuesday, I'm completely not a YouTube therapist and I am not a therapist. I am just me. So when I come back, though, I will be sure to add that to the list of topics. Absolutely. Let life love you. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. I haven't seen you in a little while. She says, or you wait until you're in your 50s and 60s to say, I'm getting out of this dysfunctional craziness. Absolutely. I don't blame you. Yeah. Earlier I said, some people wait until they're 18 to leave. Sometimes they say, you know what, I'm going to stick around. So she's saying, or wait until you're 50, 60 to say, I'm getting out of here. Yeah. That's a lot of life that's lived with a dysfunctional dynamic, right? Yeah, absolutely. And it just makes life really difficult. Orlando says, when I divorced my ex-wife, that exposed how much my family and friends hated me. Literally, nobody checked me. Yeah. Right. Because, yes, and I'm sorry that happened to you, Orlando. Here's why. Because number one, you are no longer married. Okay. And some people just feel like most people go off the deep end when they get a divorce. They probably felt like you were exaggerating or just kind of catastrophizing, right? And they obviously didn't get you. And that says a lot about them, not you, them. Jeremy Robinson says, my siblings and I did that as soon as we turned 18. We left my stepfather. He was unhinged. I'm going to say that. And my mom was the one who enabled his behavior, often justifying his actions. Yes, absolutely. It's not okay. When a parent says to you, you know what, your dad is just like that. He's been like that for years. We're not going to change him. But let's get you some coping skills. I've had that so many times in my office, and I'm like, no. Sometimes I've even had to have the conversation with the parent of, when do you plan on separating? When do you plan on divorcing? You say you don't love him anymore. You say that you don't need him. Why are you still with him? I think you need your own therapy, because you're putting your child in a negative dynamic that is unhealthy, and you're doing it intentionally out of some reason that maybe you're not aware of. And so sometimes I've had to have those conversations. And Jeremy Robinson, it sounds like your mom needed that kind of a conversation, right? That you need to just get out of this situation if you can. If it's financially possible, if it's emotionally possible, you need to do it for the betterment of your child's mental and emotional health. It's very common in a family where there is family alienation, where there is a female psychopath, where there is family member marginalization. When all of that is the case, it is very common sometimes for the mother of the family to say, we just have to learn to get along better with dad. We're not getting a divorce. I've already told you that many times, right? You've probably heard that. Another thing that's common is we need to start going to therapy so that we can process this better. And even though your dad's not coming because he doesn't believe in therapy, we need to go. And that doesn't work either. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But Jeremy Robinson, those dynamics are a mess, right? I know you know it. Ellie Wynn says, women psychos are very good at masking. Female psychopaths are very good at masking. They have top-notch social skills. That's really the way I want you to see this. GB Joe says, my dad would talk his butt fried chicken about my mom, and I was just praying that Father put me to sleep. Yeah, I get you. I get what you're trying to say, GB Joe. Yeah, I totally get you. And a lot of times that's a common dynamic as well. It is. Night Charm, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Says, bingo, my mom 100%. Yeah. A lot of you on here tonight, and we do have a lot of people on here tonight. We typically get a little bit over 170 people every live chat. Tonight, it's 224 people. Why? Because this is a topic that a lot of people struggle with. I have at least 10 clients that see me in my practice of over 200 clients for this reason alone. family alienation, psychopath mother, sister, daughter, female, grandparent, and the significant distress that is caused because of this, and not to mention parent-child alienation. That's another thing I see a lot of. So I think you guys can look at this, tonight and say, oh my God, I'm not the only one, right? Yeah, you just change your picture and that helps so much. So much. Is it Cheney Morgan? Is that what it is? I hope I got it right. He says psychopaths' biggest desire is power, correct? Power, control, getting what they want, and outsmarting humanity. Outsmarting humanity. That's in there, right? Not just power, but power, control, dominion. They want to be on top. They want to be the center of attention. They often want to have this, what's the word I'm looking for? They want to always win a power struggle. You're never going to be above them because they're going to make sure that they're always above you, And again, they tend to be highly manipulative when it comes to their social network. So they know how to move people in their life like you do on a chessboard, I have a kid that plays chess with me every other session. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't know what the heck I'm doing. You know what I mean? Because you see all those pieces, you see all the pieces in front of you, and you're like, okay, what is this? Who's the bishop? Why is that a queen? Why is that a knight? What does that even mean? So I'm the unintelligent one sitting at a chessboard. And so every time I'm playing chess with my client, he's so good at it. I'm like, why didn't I see that? Oh man, I should have took that move, Part of the psychopath female is the ability to step onto that chessboard and move every piece of the puzzle well through imagining what they can do to get you, manipulating your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, seductive invitations, right? So I'm slowly in a seductive way causing you to bend towards my view of things, bend towards what I want you to bend towards, And they also strive to keep you off-kiltered, confused, questioning, That's the way that they get their power. That's the best way that I can put that. I hope that helps, Cheney. I hope I'm saying your name right this time around. Sam Mitch, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says listening to react instead of understand. Very much agree. Psychopaths, just in general, not just, female psychopaths, they listen to respond. They listen to respond. They don't listen to understand, to process, and to give you something in return, So you're right, Sam. I very much agree. Kim Math says, my mama tried to steal my hairstyle and clothing style. I'm size 6. She even tried to grow her hair long. The competition is fierce. Crazy making. It's all survival, Jeremy. Good insight. Yeah. There's often, let me just say, and Kim, that's horrible. We should never have that kind of a dynamic with our mothers, right? And our parents, dads included. But let me just say, the part of the female psychopath is envy. So they are going to be envious. That's at the core of who they are, and envy is what triggers that instrumental violence, that violence that they engage in to achieve a goal. It's instrumental. It's achieving something in the end. And so typically a female psychopath is going to be jealous. What are they going to do when they're jealous? Well, they're going to try to dress better than you. They're going to try to mimic your style, right? They're going to try to talk differently and behave differently to attract attention. They may even show a little cleavage and wear their skirt a little bit too high and wear the best colored shoes and dress the best and be seductive in that way, all in an attempt to outperform you. So a lot of female psychopaths tend to also be envious. And I meant to say that earlier. So Kim, I'm glad you brought that up because they tend to be very fixated on how they can rise above you, look better than you, do better than you, and come out on top. A psychopath, and let me give you guys this before I go back to the chat box here, and then I'm going to give you the final part of the live chat tonight. A psychopathic female, mom, sister, cousin, whatever, grandparent, they often live inside of their mind. you know, it's almost like they've created an Alice in Wonderland for themselves. And you are in their Alice in Wonderland, and you need to learn how to play by their rules, you know? And that is really the mind of a female psychopath. Male psychopaths tend to be a little more behavioral. They're not so much in their head as a female would be. So that's why I'm making this distinction. A female psychopath is very much playing in their own theater, drama, talent show, Alice in Wonderland, whatever you want to call it. And they tend to make their moves against you based on that fantasy world that they are stuck in. You know, and if part of that fantasy world in their mind is to look better, talk better, act better, get all the attention in the room, go into a place of business and talk loud and dress seductively and flamboyant and be loud and abrasive and controlling and domineering, to be all of that is for a purpose. It's instrumental. And it's because they live in their own Alice in Wonderland. You're a player in their world, and they really do see you that way. Even if it's a mom, you as the child are something to be owned. You are not something to be loved. And that often, for me, clinically, sets aside the female psychopath mother from all the other mothers that I see in my private practice, you know? And that's even backed by research. You know, they see you as something to be owned, not something to be loved. Jeanette says, oh, the stare. Yeah, there is some research that suggests there is a psychopathic stare, but research has not confirmed that. Excuse me. What we can say, though, is most school massacres happen at the hands of a psychopath. An individual who says they've been bullied, harassed, you know, mistreated, nobody likes them, that kind of drama narrative. Sometimes that drama narrative is true. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes that's just how they're perceiving their reality because other things are going on in their mind, in their life, and in their heart. But most individuals at the time that they have decided to open fire in a school, all individuals tend to have a very weird and odd facial composition. They have a very, very interesting facial expression. And some people have called that the psychopathic stare, where the eyes just fixate, you know, there's no emotion behind the eyes. There's no red blood going through their veins. You know, there's no connection emotionally. They're just absent. No research, however, has supported that idea. But do I see it? Yes. Do other psychologists see it? Yes. The psychopathic stare, if you Google James Holmes, you'll see it. If you Google Adam Lanza, you'll see it. If you Google Timothy McVeigh, you'll see it. If you Google Charles Manson, you'll see it. And go ahead, you might as well go ahead and Google Jeffrey Dahmer. He's another one. They have a very interesting facial composition. Their eyes say it all, but no research has backed that up. And the young lady, Natalie Samantha, that just engaged in a massacre in Wisconsin or Minnesota, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Minnesota. Yeah. You know, she has a face that you would never think would engage in such a bad thing, right? When I got a call from one of the therapists in the area after the massacre, the school shooting had occurred, I'm asking my colleague, what's going on there? And, who's this person? Does anybody have any information on the shooter? And my coworker, who is in Minnesota, said to me, we don't really know who it is. And for the past day or two, I had been thinking it's a man, a male, a teen boy, somebody that's been mistreated. And the reality of that, a female. I was very surprised, because you're going to see this in my video on female psychopaths coming up next week. that most of our history is male psychopaths who have done very heinous things, not female. So she's a really modern psychopath. She had some issues at home, and that contributes as well. But she is the definition of a female psychopath in so many ways. Let me also briefly just say here that she also learned how to shoot a gun. It was kind of like this thing that she and her dad would do. And she had a t-shirt. Of course, you guys may have seen the information online. She had a t-shirt that she was wearing as she was at a shooting range, if you will. I can't remember what they called it. But on the back of her t-shirt is a reference to a band that is in support of the Columbine shooters, and some kind of reference to the Columbine shooter. So that there should show you where her mind was, you know? So you can look for things like that in a female narcissist as well. Most female psychopaths, most psychopaths end up giving themselves away at some point. That's what I'm trying to get out. They end up giving themselves away at some point. Women, however, probably very much like this young lady, Natalie Samantha, over time, they build up so much trust as a female, that it's really hard to believe that they would be a psychopath. But it is very much a reality, as we can see. Okay, Nancy, you're my last one before I go back to the content. Nancy says, weird question, but if my father is a narcissist, would my stepmother lean that way too? No. And here's what's very interesting, guys, about this. You can have one parent who's a narcissist while the other parent is not. Sometimes the other parent sees the narcissistic spouse as, firm, straight to the point, serious-minded, mature, strong, capable, empowering, empowered. Those are all adjectives to describe, or terms or words to describe what some people see in a spouse who becomes a narcissist over time, or they start showing their true behaviors over time. Sometimes that's an attractive trait until that other spouse looks and says, whoops, that's not attractive. That's actually ugly. And that's happened multiple times in our relationship, not just once or twice, multiple times. So to your question, which is not a weird question at all, Nancy, you're asking, if my father is a narcissist, would my stepmother lean that way too? And the answer is no. Now, there are some cases where maybe both parents are narcissistic and psychopathic, and they can really create drama and trouble and trauma for you as the child growing up, for you as the adolescent, for you as the adult parent, So I hope that answered your question, Nancy. That was a good question. Okay, let me give you guys the rest of the content. How do these kind of individuals impact you? How does family alienation impact you? How does the female psychopath within this dynamic impact you? Well, number one, and this is backed by research as well, which is a sense of powerlessness and defeat. A sense of powerlessness and defeat. Why? Because when you have a psychopathic female in your family and you are closely related to them, or you are the victim of family and parental alienation, whichever way this kind of relates to you, you can always see in the dynamic this power-hungry individual who is hoping that they can influence how you think, how you feel, how you behave, how you perceive reality. And they are so overpowering that you may even placate them by going along with their lies, by going along with their alienation, by going along with their perception of reality, just so you can have some peace. Or you may be so highly influential, if you will, or highly influenced by that person in the family that you just begin to see things their way, or you just begin to lean towards their way of things. And so over time, you don't have the ability to develop an identity. You don't have the ability to develop confidence that what you are acknowledging and what you are seeing and what you are experiencing is true. So those feelings and that reality kind of gets internalized and you move on, right? And so you may have a sense of powerlessness and defeat. You may also have this experience of perpetuated parental alienation, perpetuated family alienation, where you've been a victim of either one of those things or maybe both. And so you've learned over time how to experience, how to deal with, how to engage in, situations where there's alienation, but you've learned kind of how to survive and cope with it. And when you do that, when you become sensitive or desensitized, I'll put it that way, when you become desensitized to alienation within your family, and it's just a natural everyday thing, over time, you may become an individual who engages in parental alienation of your own children, or family alienation, of your family as well. So in other words, you begin to take on that attitude of alienation as well over time. Not everybody, but some people do. There's also trauma reenactments. Usually when there's family alienation, there's a female psychopath at the core of all the family toxicity and drama. You often have traumatic experiences, whether that's exposure to something at a young age that you shouldn't have been exposed to. That could be, maybe you had a traumatic situation that left you just kind of stamped with PTSD. Maybe dad was violating you. Maybe mom was violating you. Whatever was happening, it has left a stamp of trauma. And so a trauma reenactment happens when you become an adult. Sometimes even if, you can still be a child or an adolescent, and you're in a situation that kind of takes your mind, and your brain reacts to this naturally. The situation or the experience kind of takes your mind back to a time where you were traumatized, and you start thinking the way that you thought at that time. You start behaving in ways that you behaved at that time. You start feeling these intense, powerful emotions that changes how you respond to your now, and it really skews your now. It skews the situation that has kind of reenacted or reignited your trauma. It kind of skews the way that you see things. You may also have this experience of self-sabotage and people pleasing. If you're living in a household with a female psychopath, let's say that's your mother, the only way that you can kind of survive, because you are trapped by her authority over you. You're also trapped by the fact that she has to feed you and clothe you and pay your way through things until you're independent, right? So these kind of kids are trapped with these kind of parents. So let's say you're trapped with your mom, and she has many psychopathic traits. Okay. So you're trapped with your mom. Over time, the way that you survive is through people pleasing. I'm just going to please mom, so she'll leave me alone. I'm just going to tell her what she needs to know, so she'll leave me alone. I'm just going to text her really briefly, so she'll leave me alone. There's a lot of placating. There's a lot of people pleasing. There's a lot of crossing T's and dotting I's with these kind of mothers. They can be very emotionally draining. Over time, you may self-sabotage, not knowing you're doing it. You may self-sabotage your adult relationships, your adult opportunities to do better in life, your success. You may sabotage your relationships, your romantic and working and, friend relationships. You can just start to self-sabotage your entire existence because of growing up under a psychopath mother who tends to be very loud and big in how they relate to you in the world. Psychopath moms tend to be very loud, literally, sometimes, controlling, domineering, possessive, mean, callous, cold. We can go down a whole list of things. It defines the female psychopath as a very unstable individual who can destabilize you over time. And so you begin to self-sabotage as a result. There may be years and years of emotional torment that you need somebody to see this with you. Do you see my mom? Because I see my mom. Do you see my grandma? Because I see my grandma. Do you see my sister? Isn't she a psychopath? Did you see the way she looked at you? Did you hear that? You need somebody to witness this with you, right? So you may experience emotional torment because maybe grandma doesn't get it. Maybe dad doesn't get it. Maybe your brother doesn't get it. Maybe your coworkers don't get it, right? So you kind of need a second pair of eyes. So you can experience emotional torment as a result. You may also feel like an inconvenience to this psychopathic mother. I know I engaged in adult behavior that led me to become impregnated. I know I birthed you, and I know my responsibility is to care for you, but you're a major inconvenience. And I once had in therapy, what I thought was a very narcissistic mother. My coworker begged to differ with me. He's like, nah, that's a psychopath. And here's why. And he laid out his whole argument. And then I changed my view of this situation. But I did think that this mom that I had over 8 years ago, she brought her 5-year-old, her 10-year-old, and her 14-year-old in to see me for individual therapy. But then we started doing family sessions or family therapy once a month. Okay. And as I was getting to know this family, I thought they were the most wonderful family, you know. Over time, though, I started to realize mom is a narcissist, which I thought was a narcissist. I later changed it. Mom was a psychopath. Dad was a narcissist for sure. And the kids were just these innocent kids who just wanted loving parents, you know. And so one session got really heated in a family session. And I literally had to ask the calmer child to sit between mom and dad, because mom and dad were literally yelling at each other, facing each other like this, okay, and screaming in each other's face and just so enraged. And I told a child that was there by the 10-year-old. I think I mentioned the 10-year-old. I said, would you please go and sit between your mom and dad? You know, and I said to mom and dad, I'm going to have this child sit between you two, because that is the only thing that's going to stop you guys from yelling and screaming in each other's face in front of these kids. And the mother looks at her daughter and says, you know what? Since we're all being honest here, you're an inconvenience. I didn't want you. You were a mistake. Your dad wanted you. And I skipped my birth control. This is exactly what she said. I skipped my birth control for that day. And boy, am I sorry, because you're a complete inconvenience to me. I almost either went off myself on the mom or passed out, because the look of fear and torment, to my point, emotional torment, and just being told you're an inconvenience was so deadening, you know. And even to talk about it, I still feel that pain on the inside. It's like, how could you? But she was a psychopath of a parent, and that's what we dealt with. Lastly, in this category, before I go to the chat box and we wrap up, you can become a long-term victim of parental alienation. It may not end when you hit 18. It may not end when you hit 22. It may not end when you hit 60. It may just miraculously end when mom and dad pass away. It may end when mom and dad are 90, you know? So you can become a long-term victim of parental alienation. You can also become a long-term victim of family alienation. It's a lot, right, guys? This was a lot of information to take in, but I welcome you to come tomorrow night. I'm going to talk about the psychology of the self-righteous within this kind of family dynamic and what you may have experienced and what you're dealing with. Monday and Tuesday, I also have videos on the female psychopath, and another live chat Tuesday, I think. And then you guys won't see me until January 4th. So hopefully this was helpful to you. I'm going to go to the chat box and just communicate with a little bit of you. Hopefully I can get most of you, and then I'm going to wrap up. And please let me know. I like what Kyra knows 144K says. She says pure wickedness. Very much agree. Very much agree. Let me know what you think this is. Do you feel like you've been alienated within your family? Do you feel like you've experienced parental alienation? Have you experienced the female psychopath? If so, has anything that's been said in this live chat tonight by me or those in the chat box, you know, do you relate to any of that? Is this real for you? So let me know, okay? Let me know. SH, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says awful behaviors. Hate the snooping. Like you can't have any privacy. No, you can't. Agree. Is it Jenny? I'm going to say Jenny. Jenny B says, how does someone slander another to the point of ostracization? What kind of things are they telling people? Well, it could be anything. It could be, she's so unintelligent over there and she walks around being self-righteous and arrogant and she thinks she's cute too. And that's not the case. Okay. Ostracization or being ostracized as a female, as a male. It could be, he bought that car over there and, he thinks that car is saying something. He comes to work every day with his chest held up. I can't stand to see him like that. How does a dude like that get so much money? I've had this stuff talk to me. I've had clients talk to me in that way. And so that's why I'm giving you the example. And that is enough to cause ostracizing within a family and within a social context, Ellie Wynn says so many micro and macro clues if one is educated. Yeah. Identify these subhuman predators. Ooh, that was a good comment, Ellie Wynn. I love that. Thank you for saying that. Veronica Olson live talks. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says better to have glass anyway. His beloved. Hello and welcome. Oh, I really like that. I love your screen names. Very nice. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome. And also for you, Veronica, I don't remember seeing you as well. So welcome to the channel. His beloved says this is fascinating. Thank you so much. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm so glad to hear that. Jeanette says happy Friday. Yes. Thank you so much for that. And happy Friday to you. And thank you, his beloved. Thank you so much. Right now, my migraine is literally a 1 out of 10. So thank God, So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Cam says, hope you get to fully enjoy your weekend. Migraines are rough, aren't they? Thank you so much for that. That's so sweet. I hope you get to enjoy your weekend as well. I'm literally going to go take a hot bath after this and just do nothing. James McDonald says, hi, Tamara and all. Looking forward to this topic. Glad to have you. Okay. I'm missing people, so bear with me. Red Spot. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. I don't remember you. So glad to see you. Thanks, Kim. Yes, it is. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, SH. I'm just going to tell you this just because I self-disclosed at times to build connection with you guys. And sometimes my clients too. My doctor was like, something's wrong. You should not be having a migraine for 3 weeks nonstop, day and night. He's like, we're going to try a steroid. And the first thing I thought was, no, I'm going to go home. I'm going to eat. I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to do this in a natural way. You know what I mean, guys? So SH, thank you. It is horrible. It is. G Major, hello. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And happy holidays to you as well. I had to look over that again. Thank you so much. Uh-oh. I hit the wrong button. Bear with me, guys. Here we go. Tammy Nicely says, and I thought I was the sick one. Wow, she's worse than I thought. Oh, geez. Tammy Nicely, you're not sick. Let me say this just so you guys keep this in mind. If you have a mother that you think is a psychopath, that doesn't mean that you're automatically going to become a psychopath yourself. So let me just throw that out there. You are not going to become a psychopath yourself. Typically what happens is the female psychopath is both born and made. So there's a genetic component, yes, to certain characteristics. But there's also a component that has been a part of that person's life story that molds and shapes them into the psychopath that they are. So you may not have that same experience, and your genetic code may actually be different because it's pulling from your dad. It's pulling from a cousin. So I want to make sure I put that out there, that just because your mom may be a psychopath doesn't necessarily mean that that's you. GB Joe says, I don't trust women for years. I mean, I know I'm that way too, because, excuse me, because any time in my history that I have had to deal with females, it's either been envy or outright jealousy. And I don't like that. So I automatically say, you know what? You're not somebody that I can connect with because you're giving me bad vibes here and I'm not feeling okay with this. Or it's been a female that has been in competition, or, they're hugging you and loving and nice to your face and then go behind you and talk about you. Thankfully, I've never had that. But I will say that outside of my professional life, there's only one really good female friend, and we are like this. We're like this, you know? And I trust what she has to say. But I very much agree with you that it's hard to trust them, right, Juby Joe? Kim Math says, thank you for this content. Very grateful. I will listen a second time and take notes. Thank you so much for that. And I'm so glad to hear that this is helpful. Eat Clone Jitto 99. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. It's been a little while, my friend. Eat Clone Jitto 99 says, it has been a while. So grateful I could catch this live. Yeah, me too. So glad to see you. Elizabeth, did I welcome you? I think I did. Elizabeth says, Merry Xmas. I had a hard week too, but I managed, and I'm surprised by myself because when I needed help, my mother started playing games, and instead of collapsing, I solved the problem, but I'm exhausted. Yeah, I'm sorry, Elizabeth. That's really rough, isn't it? It's really rough. But you made it through the week, right? That's all you need to do is make it through the week. Red Spot says, is it common for most psychopath women to be professionals? Sometime. I have female psychopaths in this field with me, and I can feel the coldness in their veins, you know? I can sense the ice just, you know, running off of them because they are so cold. And sometimes I look at coworkers, or sometimes I look at other professionals in the field, and I'm like, why are you here? You know, is this a mask? Why are we deceiving people here? Because you clearly do not have a heart for humanity, you know? So yeah, very much so. Yeah, thank you for that, Dawn One. Hello and welcome, by the way. Glad to see you. I'm just going to put your comment on the screen. Jill Goner, I hope I said that correctly. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. I'm not going to answer that. Because I don't want to. That's a good question, Jill. But I'm going to be very honest with you. I haven't really evaluated all of her behavior, you know, enough. I've only seen sporadically some things. So I'm sorry. I'm going to skip over that one. I'm going to go back and watch her then after I get some time to myself. And maybe I'll go ahead and psychoanalyze her behaviors just because you mentioned it. You're welcome, Orlando. You're welcome. Okay. Chasmine. Did I say that right? Probably not. I'm so sorry. Merry Christmas to you as well. And thank you. I'm glad this was good information. So glad to have you also. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome. For those of you who are new, go ahead, if you will, and hit that subscribe button, because what I saw in the statistics is that many of you are returning viewers and you love this content. So if you aren't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Because you're going to get more of this in the new year, and you're probably going to want to know what's going on my channel. Jeanette says, I like to study the traits of different personalities too. I appreciate your perspective, Tamara. Thank you so much for that. Yes, that has been, remember in the last conversation, we talked about criminal personalities, the psychology of the criminal mind. And I told you that my double major was forensic psychology and forensics. So it's my first love, if you will. His Beloved says, how do we recover from alienation? So grateful to be here. Yeah, I'm glad to have you and grateful to have you and everybody else tonight. How do we recover from alienation? Well, that's a difficult topic, and I don't know if I have that one quick answer to that. So what I'm going to do is put that in my list of January live chats. So if you guys want me to talk about family marginalization, parental alienation, and family alienation, and how to recover over time, and how to reparent yourself, let me know. Let me know in the chat box, okay? I'll go ahead and do that live chat if you're interested. Illuminate your power says just hopped in. Interesting topic. Thank you so much for that. So glad. And welcome. I don't remember seeing you. So welcome, welcome. James McDonald says, unfortunately, I used to attract a lot of toxic females in my younger years when I had many issues around low self-esteem and worth. Thankfully, today, through wisdom, I can detect the red flags more easily. Yeah, that's so good to hear. I think wisdom is everything we need to survive sometimes, you know? If you can see what you need to see ahead of time, you can avoid all the heartache, you know? Flower Fairy, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Flower Fairy says, I wonder if my mom is a psychopath, all of my siblings, or is it me? Sheesh. I don't know. You may be onto something. M.N. Odell says, sounds like Miss Tamara gets snow for Christmas. Yeah, right? It's cold outside. Okay, I'm trying to catch up, guys. Bear with me, and then we're going to wrap up. Terry Massey, I hope I said that correctly. Welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat, and welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. Terry Massey says, I'd rather be the villain in their story than to not be free from a toxic environment. Oh, I totally see that. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yep. Den Woke, I hope I said that correctly. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you back. Says, yes, that is my story, mommy dearest, and dealing with it alone, sadly. By God's grace, yeah. Hopefully, you will continue to feel strong over time. Hopefully, God will continue to strengthen you over time, right? Q Code Award says, I watched Mommy Dearest as a child. I cried like a baby. I tried to watch it this year. I couldn't finish. It's too much. Yeah, absolutely. My mom introduced me to Mommy Dearest because it reminded her of my late grandmother. My grandmother grew and developed over time and became less of a Mommy Dearest. She became more of a loving grandmother. But when she was younger, raising my uncle and my mom says all the time, those years were bad. She was like a Mommy Dearest parent. So my mom actually introduced me to the movie of Mommy Dearest when I was about 17, 18. It's very sad. I agree. James McDonald, thank you so much. Thank you. That's so sweet of you. I really appreciate the super chat and the kind comments. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas too. Okay, guys, I'm gonna have to close this down, but you guys have a lot of comments that are just wonderful. Not obeying, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. God is love. Welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat as well. Q Quote Award. Thank you so much. I'm glad you could tune in even while you're working. Thank you for the super chat. Okay. Yes. Thank you, GB Joe. I'm going to do that. Put some salt in there. I know you're right. My great grandmother, who is very, very Native American to her core. That's my Native American Apache side of my family. And she used to say vinegar in hot water, salt in hot water, sardine oil. I was just like, Grandma, please just stop. Oh my God, this is gross. But thank you, GB Joe. I appreciate that. I know you're right. So I'm going to do it. Okay. Let me make sure. John Hill, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. You're welcome. And thank you for coming. Glad to see you as well. Let me just scroll one last time. Fairy girl. I didn't get to you most in this chat, but that doesn't mean I love you any less. Okay. Always love your comments. So I want to make sure that I acknowledged you. I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you. Ruth Niara. I wonder if I said that correctly. Forgive me if I didn't. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you as well. And welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. Glad to see you. Kara Young, hello and welcome, or Kara Young, welcome to tonight's live chat. Says, I'm on my healing path from trauma. I hope X is out my home tomorrow. Yeah, good for you. I hope so too. If your partner, your spouse is making life difficult for you, I hope he's out too, or hope she's out too. Okay. Little Dark Stars. Yes. I think a lot of people relate to you on this live chat tonight for sure. Okay. One last person. I have to. Bob D, you're my last one. Okay. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to see you. I don't remember seeing you before, so welcome to the channel. Bob D says they think it is to their benefit, yet the outcome is bad for all, including themselves. I very much agree. Very much agree. Female psychopaths people who engage in parental alienation, people who engage in family alienation, again, you are in their world. So because of that, they think they made up the rules that you have to follow. And so, yes, they don't realize that what they're doing is against their survival, very much the same as it is against your survival. So in other words, that was a little spotty, but in other words, what they're doing to you, they're also doing to themselves, but they can't see it because they've designed these rules that you must follow. And these rules have to be followed within their own mental world. You know, it's a mess, right? For those of you who I didn't get a chance to talk to tonight, know that I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you for helping me. Also, keep the conversation lively. Keep the conversation electrifying for people that need to really know that this is really true. You know, this is stuff that happens. And I see this every day in my practice. I've seen this for the past 15 years of my career. It's a lot, right? And we also recently hit the subscriber count of 74.1K. So thank you so much for that as well. Guys, I'm going to see you tomorrow. Hope you have a wonderful night. Come join me tomorrow. We're going to talk about the psychology of the self-righteous in relationship to you. So you're going to want to know what that is. Have a good night, guys. Bye.